So, this is the second lesson on participles. We saw in the first lesson that we use participles to shorten sentences, especially reduced relative clauses. Well, we also use participles to shorten other sentences concerning condition, cause and effect, and sequence. And I hope to show you that, especially with sequence, participles start to look very similar to gerunds. And this is why I don't even think it's useful to necessarily separate the two. You could just call them all ing forms. Okay, so look at number one. We have condition. If we want to shorten a sentence which has an if or a providing that, it can be done with a participle. For example, washed regularly, hair will remain thick and healthy. This means if hair is washed regularly, it will remain thick and healthy. It's a passive sentence, really. The hair is washed is present simple passive, and so we need a past participle here. However, look at the next sentence, and perhaps we'll start with this one because this one's closer. Passing your exam, you will be a success. This means if you pass your exam, active, you pass, yeah, not you are passed, but you pass. If you pass your exam, you will be a success. Okay, note the comma because we've got a subordinate clause and an independent clause, a main clause coming second. So when you start with a subordinate clause, you have a comma after the subordinate clause and then have the main clause. However, I've got a slightly different one here. Brushing teeth twice a day will prevent tooth decay. Now, you could argue that this is a conditional. If you brush your teeth twice a day, that will prevent tooth decay. You could argue that, or you could say, no, it's simply a gerund. This is the subject of the sentence. Brushing teeth twice a day will prevent tooth decay. It's your choice, but here, because it's the subject of the sentence, we don't have a comma. It's all the independent clause. But certainly, anyway, you can see it's active if you brush. Yeah, active, so brushing and not brushed. Okay, look at cause and effect. We can get rid of the words so or because or as a result using these participles. So we could say, I wanted a coffee, so I stopped at the cafe. Or we can say, wanting a coffee, I stopped at the cafe. I wanted is active, and so we need the present participle. Wanting a coffee, I stopped at the cafe. This is a subordinate clause, comma, independent clause. Look at the next example. Covered in blankets, he wouldn't get cold. Now this is actually ambiguous, I've decided, because it could mean condition or it could mean the cause, yeah? And by cause I mean so or because or this is the reason. And so we could mean he was covered in blankets so that he wouldn't get cold, yeah? We could mean that. Or we could mean the conditional. If he were covered in blankets, he wouldn't get cold. And so it's actually quite ambiguous, that sentence. But the main point is that it's passive. So we need the past participle. He was covered, or if he were covered. They're both passive forms, so we definitely need the past participle. And I want you to compare as well. Covered in blankets, he wouldn't have got cold, which would be the third conditional reduced form with this participle. Covered in blankets, he wouldn't have got cold. It means if he had been covered in blankets, passive, he wouldn't have got cold. Okay, let's go on to the last one. Having no time to finish the exam, I failed. This is the same as I had no time to finish the exam, so I failed. Cause and effect. All of these, cause and effect. The last part which we're going to look at is sequence, which is where we can remove while or when or as soon as using these participles. So we're talking about the order of events, and it also includes simultaneity as well, which is basically while. While is simultaneity. It's when two things happen at the same time, we can use participles, or when one thing happens after the other. So in my first example, sitting at the cafe with friends, I met my boss. This is simultaneous, yeah? This is the same as saying while sitting at the cafe with my friends, I met my boss. But we don't need to put while. We can just say sitting at the cafe with friends, I met my boss. It's I was sitting, it's active. And so we've got to use a present participle. Or we could say running up the stairs, he glanced at the old picture. he is a subject here. And by the way, be careful with all of these participles not to use a dangling modifier. I noticed in one of my old videos where I talk about complex gerunds and infinitives, which is very similar to this grammar. Please watch that video as well. However, I did make a mistake. I put a dangling modifier here. Please remember the subject here must be the subject of the subordinate clause as well. The he glanced at his old picture. The he must be the person who ran up the stairs. That can't be me. So don't use a dangling modifier here. I did it in one of my videos. It's very, I think I put eating ice cream, my mobile rang. That's wrong. That's a dangling modifier. My mobile is not eating ice cream. So be careful. So here, running up the stairs he glanced at the old picture, it could mean while running up the stairs he glanced at the old picture, or it could mean when running up the stairs or as soon as he ran up the stairs he glanced at the old picture, in which case first he ran and then he glanced. So this one is ambiguous, but it's also active. He was running up the stairs. It's active, it's not passive. So two passive examples now. Attacked by a dog, the child was taken to hospital. This is the child was attacked by the dog and then taken to hospital. So here we've got kind of first attacked and then taken to hospital as soon as. It's kind of similar to that one. And lastly, situated on the south coast, Weymouth is a popular resort. You could say this is similar to a reduced relative clause. Weymouth is a popular resort, which is situated on the south coast. But it's passive again, and so it's got to be a past participle. And I want you to quickly, lastly, compare. We could say running up the stairs, he glanced at the old picture, meaning as soon as he ran up the stairs, he glanced at the old picture. Or we could say having run up the stairs, he glanced at the old picture, and this would be the perfect gerund, which I talk about in my perfect gerunds videos. And again, we can see that these participles are very similar to gerunds. I don't know if it's possible to say that one is different from the other. They seem to be very, very similar. For the attacked by a dog, we could use a passive perfect gerund. Having been attacked by a dog, the child was taken to hospital. And I actually think that sounds nicer, but I mean, you'll often see this, especially in newspapers. You'll often see these participles in newspaper speech. And lastly, you could even say being attacked. Use the perfect gerund. Being attacked by a dog, the child was taken to hospital. I don't like that one actually. Now, I wrote it down, but I'm not sure we would use it. Being attacked by a dog, the child was taken to hospital. No, I don't think we would actually. I've put it down there, but get rid of it. I've changed my mind. But having been attacked or attacked by a dog, both of those sound good. So you can see that these are complex, these participles, and it becomes very similar to perfect gerunds and infinitives. Please watch that video if you're interested in this grammar. Okay, thanks for watching. If you have any questions about this video, put them underneath the video and I'll do my best to reply. If you've enjoyed the lesson, please give it a like and please subscribe, and I hope to see you all soon.